Hi guys, welcome everyone. So this is what we're gonna paint today. I'm gonna give everyone 2 more minutes to join us. So just hang tight because I don't want to get too far before everyone gets in here. So we'll just give everyone 2 more minutes to get in here, and then we're gonna start. Oh, hi Brian. Hi guys. Thank you. Thank you. All right, well, 1 more minute from Toronto. Hi neighbors. I mean, distant neighbors, but still neighbors. Michigan, Guelph, Ohio, Seattle, Alabama, Ontario, Florida, New Hampshire. So many cool places. Michigan, Mississippi, Texas. Hi, guys. Hello from Australia. Hello. Hello to you, Australians. Alrighty, so I think it's time to start. So, welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Vera. I will be your instructor for today, and this is what we're going to paint. It is pretty fun, and we're actually going to start with a sketch. So make sure you have a pencil or something to sketch with. For those of you who've never painted with us before, I just want to mention that this video is being recorded, and the recording is going to stay right here on our YouTube channel pretty much forever. So you can come back and do it anytime. You don't have to do it specifically today. If today doesn't work for you, any other day works just fine. It's not going to go anywhere. All right, and another thing I want to mention that I completely forgot about. So do you see that moon? If you have something circular that you would like to outline for the moon, grab it now, because that's going to be one of the first things that we're going to do. So maybe a small plate or a bowl or a lid from something, whatever you have. I'm going to see what I have around that could potentially be a good size for that. I have a little mirror here. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a good size. That looks like a good size. We'll keep it. Yeah, so that's that, and a pencil. And this is pretty simple to sketch, so nothing fancy here. But yeah, let's go through the rest of supplies too. We're gonna need acrylic paint after we have a sketch. I'm gonna be using standard set, which is primary colors only, yellow, red, blue, plus black and white. And I'll be mixing everything that you can see here out of my primary colors. Now, if you're not a big fan of primers and you prefer pre-mixed, that's totally fine. You're more than welcome to use pre-mixed colors. And you will just need any colors that you choose to use here. So for example, for pumpkins, you may need a shade of orange or two. If you decide to go with pre-mixed orange, definitely buy a darker one because you can easily make it lighter, but it's hard to make a pre-mixed light orange darker. So buy a darker one, green, blue for the background, and again, any colors for the eyes that you feel like. In my case, I have yellow, orangey eyes, I have blue eyes, and I have light green eyes. But again, you're more than welcome to modify all of that. And of course, black and white in addition to that. And we're gonna need some water. We're gonna need a paper towel or reusable fabric cloth, whatever you guys use in there. We will also need a couple of brushes. So for brushes, we always recommend having at least 3 different brushes, and they can be absolutely any shape. There are no particular brushes as far as exact size or brand that we recommend, as long as you have variety. That's what is important. Important that you have a variety. We always recommend having something large, something medium, and the most important brush is a small brush with a pointy tip because we have so many details here. So this one, regardless of the size of your canvas, it's going to be the same brush. It's going to be a small brush with a pointy tip. If you have my numbers, I would say it's about 0, 1, 2 or something on a smaller side. In my case, I think this one is actually 3, but it doesn't matter because it does have a pointy tip, and that's what we're looking for. As long as it has this pointy tip, can be any size. And then something medium and something large for the rest of the area. So for something medium, I'm going to use this for my pumpkins, for my cats, for my bats. Something large, I'm going to use this for all the backgrounds and probably the backdrop of pumpkins. So whatever works for you. If you have a large set, you can use more than 3 brushes. You can use 5 or however many brushes you want. Just choose the one the most appropriate for every particular step. But again, the most important brush that you need to have is a small brush with a pointed tip. Yay, glad you like them. Thanks for joining us. All right, guys, let's move straight on to sketching here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to sketch our moon. I would say moon is right in the middle of your canvas. That's exactly where you're going to position it. You can position it a bit higher if you want to have a bit more moon and a bit more background around your moon, especially on top. Or you can position it lower if you want it the other way around, if you want maybe a little bit less moon and a bit more sky. But generally, I would say right in the middle is a good place to position it. So I'm just going to take, oh, and of course it can be smaller than mine, bigger than mine, whatever you have to outline there. If you don't have anything to outline, that's okay too. You can always freehand it. Oh, and guys, another thing I want to mention for anyone who is maybe joining the YouTube live event for the first time, we usually go at our speed. I will be waiting for everyone here and there, but I wouldn't be giving you a crazy large amount of time to complete every step because you can always do this on a rewind and rewatch. So basically, you can rewind the video even as we are live. You can rewind it as many times as you want and rewatch the sections of it. And as we finish recording the video, you're going to be able to pause it as well. So feel free to really take your time. You don't need to rush through this. Take as much time as you need. All right, so I have my moon here. Next thing I'm going to sketch is going to be my cats and my pumpkins. So it doesn't really matter which one you start with, cats or pumpkins. I think I'm going to start with cats. So I would start with my middle cat, and my middle cat is going to be right in the middle of my moon. Again, approximately. And I'm going to start by positioning ahead. So it's just going to be one circle. You can make your cat bigger than this, smaller than this. Again, the size doesn't matter. I would say even if you make him bigger, it's going to look cuter. So versus bigger versus smaller, I would say go either this size or bigger. So I would take a circle and I'll put it right in the middle of my moon here. That's my cat head. You know, I might make it bigger. Follow my own advice. All right, I have a cat face, cat head. Now I'm going to add an oval going down. And by the way, you're not going to see all of it. You might see until maybe here, but the rest you're not going to see. So you don't even have to finish it as an oval. This is just to give you a full view, but really you could just add as if you're drawing an oval, but without going all the way down. So we can erase that right away. We don't need it. Now we're going to add the ears to our cat. Just 2 triangles, but a little bit softer. So triangles would look like that, right? Triangles would look like that, but we're not going to do pointy triangles like that. We're going to do it softer. So the top is going to stay pretty much the same. And then this one, instead of having a straight line, we're going to curve it out. So like this. Do you see it's curved towards the outside? And then you're going to slightly curve the top as well. So then it turns into more of a that. You see it almost flows into your head, and it's a little bit softer all around. And then I'll do the same on the other side. Just a softer lines, a little more curved. All right, and now I'm gonna curve this corners here. So do you see right now the corners are sharp? I mean, there's nothing wrong with leaving the corner sharp. It still looks good. It still looks like a cat outline. That's definitely recognizable. So if you want to keep those sharp corners, no problem, keep them. But when I was originally making, I did soften it up a little bit. I don't get rid of it completely, but I do soften it up a little bit. So I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna soften up my cat corners here in between the face and the body. All right, now let's sketch the base for the other 2 cats. And then we're gonna move on to our pumpkins, and then we'll add the tail and hands, because those we're gonna add after we have the pumpkins. We just need to almost like position our cats first. So we have our main cat that's gonna be in the middle. Then we're gonna add 2 more cats on the side. So one is gonna be taller, one is gonna be, I mean, they're both pretty small, but one is gonna be positioned lower, one is gonna be positioned higher. It doesn't matter which one is lower or higher, the one on the left or on the right, as long as they're not exactly the same, because that's just boring. So just position one somewhere higher, one somewhere lower. I would say let's go with this one higher, this one lower, but again, it doesn't matter. And both of them should be smaller than the middle one. It doesn't matter whether they're exactly the same in size or one bigger, one smaller, as long as this one is the biggest. So again, I'm going to start by positioning a head, which is a circle. And then I'm going to add my ears. And then I'm going to add a body. And again, I'll just soften up a little bit the corners between the face and the body. That's a curious cat, curious little cat there. And then I'm going to move on to one more on the other side. Again, a little bit probably lower, so they're not on the same level. But other than that, it's pretty much the same step. So we're going to start with a head. We're going to position a head. And after we have a head, we're going to add the little ears. And a body. This one, the body's barely visible, so just start it. Don't extend it too far down. Hi, Vicky. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Sorry if I'm not mentioning someone. I'm just, whenever I see that someone joined, I say hi, but I don't always see that, so I apologize. All right, so that's the beginning of my kitties. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna move to pumpkins. I'm gonna leave the cats for now. I'm gonna add my pumpkins and then I'll finish my cats. So pumpkins, I'm gonna have one bigger pumpkin in the middle, right underneath my first cat, and two pumpkins behind it, almost like hiding the body of my cats. So I'm gonna start by just positioning a circle-ish shape. Somewhere around here. It can cover as much of your cat as you want. It can be lower and you can have lots more cat, or it can be higher and you can have lots less cat. So that is entirely up to you. I might actually do a little bit lower. So maybe I'll just make it a little more squished. I see a little bit more of my cat. So that's positioning of my pumpkin number one. Then pumpkin number two is going to be behind and it's going to be somewhere here. So again, I'm just going to add a little curve for me to know where that's going to go. And then last one. So that's, again, super approximate positioning of my pumpkins. Now that I have the positioning, I'm going to move to details. And I'm going to make a little dip right here. So I'm going to bring it lower and I'm going to erase this part. So it's not a circle anymore. And then I'm going to divide my pumpkins into a little chunks. So it doesn't matter how many. I would say I would start with just zoning out the middle chunk and then dividing the remaining into a couple chunks as well. Remember, every chunk that's closer to you should definitely be bigger. So the first one would be the biggest. Then the following one can be a little smaller, and then last one would be the smallest. That's if you want to do it right. If not, you can divide them all however you want. I don't think it's going to ruin your painting. It's not like it's a super realism painting where you have to really be mindful of those things. It's not. It's really fun, almost like a fairy tale like painting. So it's not, again, realism and things being correct in a way that they work in reality, like physics and shapes and stuff. Yeah, if you get them right, good. If you don't, that's okay for this painting. It's very fantasy, like it's forgiving in that way. All right, so I have my pumpkin number one. Same thing with my other two. So we'll make a little dip. I need a better eraser. There we go. And my pumpkin number three. So again, same thing. We're going to start with a little dip. And then we're gonna section it up. All right, so those are my pumpkins. There will still be some leaves and stems there. But again, I'm going to leave that for now. And I'm going to go back to my cats. So I'm going to finish my cats because I need to position all the hands and tails and all that. And then we're going to finish our stems and leaves. And then we'll do the butts. And then I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to almost like finalize everything. And then we'll move to painting part. So for my cats, I'm going to start with this guy here, and I'm going to bring this paw down. I'm just going to extend this line. And again, you can extend it as far as you want to. You can go really far or not really far. Then you're going to curve it and bring it up. Ta-da! Of course, I'm going to erase this, but you don't have to erase it too either, actually. Like, it doesn't have to be erased because the cat is black, so whatever line you have underneath there, it's not gonna matter. Black covers all of that perfectly. So we have one. Now this two little guys, we're gonna add hands to them too. So basically their body is gonna almost disappear into the pumpkin, and then you're gonna add hands beside. So like this. Not necessarily coming out from the body. They can be connected visually to the body, but they're not necessarily coming from the body. So that's one cat. And the same with this one too. Then I'm going to move on to this beautiful tail on this cat. So what I want to see a lot of this end piece because that's the most beautiful piece here. Like out of this whole tail, like, yeah, it's great that you have a curve here, but this is a really pretty curve. So it's important for me that I have a nice curve right here. So I'm going to start with that. But ideally, you want to see a little piece here as well. All right, I'm happy with my tail. And the last thing that I need to sketch on my cats is eyes. And I'm just going to start with two large circles, and then inside of them, I'm going to put two smaller circles, but on the upper side of those large circles. So let's start by positioning two. It's up to you how big they're going to be. They're going to be, you can make them really big or you can make them not crazy large. Totally up to you. I think this is kind of too close to each other. Let's move them a little bit further apart. So that's one. And the same for the other two cats. The nose, we don't need to sketch. It's so tiny, it's going to be added on top. And then after this, I'm going to move to the stems and the leaves. So in my case, this pumpkin has no leaf. This one has one leaf. This one has two leaves. And the reason why I did that, just so they don't all look the same. It doesn't have to be specifically in that order. You can do 2 leaves on this one on this one, and none on this, or 1 on this one too. It's entirely up to you. Like, don't go by exact counting of leaves or the same positioning. Whatever works for you guys, as long as some of them have leaves, some of them more than others. That's all we care for. So I'm going to start with the stem, actually. I'm going to add a little nice stem. It looks something like that. So do you see it's like, whoop. I will tilt it somewhere right here. And I'm going to add stems to the other 2 pumpkins too. And I'm going to do all my stems tilted, so I don't want to do them straight. They're going to have a little twist like this, but you can sketch it if it works for you, if you find that it's easier, or you can just freehand the twist later on once we get there, and we'll do it painting. So entirely up to you guys, whether you want to pre-sketch the twist or whether you just want to freehand it later. And then leaves, so I'm going to add one fairly large leaf somewhere around here. And I'll add 2 leaves around here. And no more leaves for me. I'm leafed out. This is good. And the last thing that I want to add here is bats. So let me show you how to do bats. And then again, I'll give you guys a few minutes to finalize everything. I know it's quite a bit of elements here. None of the elements are difficult by themselves. None of them. They're not complicated. It's all just simple lines, simple shapes, but there are lots of them. So I get that it can take time or be slightly overwhelming. All right, so bats. So in my case, bats are located around where my moon meets the sky. It doesn't matter where they're actually located. They can be right on a border. They can be a little bit more on the sky part. They can be a little bit more on the moon part. In my case, there's a variety, right? Some of them are a bit more on the sky part. Some are a bit more on the moon part. Some are right in the middle. So again, it's entirely up to you whether you're going to position, like I did, a variety of them, whether you're going to do all of them on the outer side, all of them on the inner side, or all of them right in the border. I would say it mostly just depends how big your moon is and how much space you have here. If you don't have much space on the inside of the moon, you can position them either right on the border or a little bit outside. If you have, like me, a bit more space here, a bit less space there, you can position, again, some closer to the middle, some a bit on the outside, and have that variety. I personally like variety, but again, I know some people don't. Some people like when it's a bit more of the same, like a bit more of repetitive motion. So again, see for yourself what you like and where you have more space for that. And how we're going to do bats. Oh, another thing, notice my bats are all on a different angle. And again, I find that it's fun like that. But if you prefer them all one way, or maybe you want to just even condense it to like 3 bats, which will also look really good. Like, it doesn't have to be so many. 1 bat looks kind of funny, but 3 bats or 5 bats look good. So how do I do my bat? I'm going to start with just positioning one middle line in whatever direction. So my first bat is going to go right here. I'm going to do one middle line. Now from that middle line, I'm going to add a little curve like that, and then 2 on the sides. 2 almost like a half circle dips on each side. Then I'm going to add a curve out and down on each side, out and down, out and down. Just try to have your right and your left side somewhat similar. They don't have to be a perfect mirror reflection, but just try to have them as similar as you can, I guess. And now we're going to do the bottom. So you're going to do one large dip, and then too small. And bring it down into the tail. So that's your bet. And of course, you can play with proportions. You can make them a little bit more squished. So for example, you can lift it all up a bit and make them a little squishier or a little bigger, how I made it originally. Again, it really depends too on how much space you have and how much space you're trying to fill. If you don't have much space, squish them even more. You can squish them a lot. Like this one is pretty squishy. This one is much bigger. But also if you have lots of space, there's no need to make them small. You can make them big. So totally up to you. So I'm going to add one here. I'll add one somewhere around here. All right, so I have all my bets, all my cats and all my bets. And I'm quite happy with that, and I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. I will give you maybe 3 minutes, maybe even 4 minutes. Let's do 4 minutes, 4 straight minutes. And then after that, we're going to move right on to painting. And hopefully by then, we're all caught up on a sketch. And in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, ask away. I'm happy to help and answer them for you as good as I can to the best of my ability. Oops. All right, I guess no one has any questions so far. Maybe everyone is super busy working. All right, it's time. It's time, you guys. So hopefully we all have um, our sketch ready and ready to move to our painting. So what I'm going to start with is background, 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 background. And I'm going to start with the actual background and the moon. So we're going to start by actually mixing that color. This is not just blue, it's mixing blue. We're going to mix it. So I'm going to grab my large brush, dip it in the water. Then I'm going to start with a base of white, scoop some white on the side. Then I'll add some blue. So I'm mixing, I would say, about this color right now. So this medium without addition of any, well, with addition of black, but a very small addition of black. So I'm mixing this one. So I added some whites and blue. Now I'm going to add tiniest, tiniest little smidge of yellow because I do want it to have that teal undertone, slightly greener undertone. So just the tiniest, tiniest little smidge, because if you add too much, it's going to turn a full-on green, and I do not want that. Just want to have that teal undertone. And then to this, I'm going to add the tiniest smidge of black. You can do without black too, by the way. But if you add, it has to be no more than that. And that's just going to give it a bit more of like a stormier look. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this color. By the way, I'm going to go right over my beds. And if I lose them accidentally, I'll just add them on top. But I don't think I'll lose them. I think I'm going to still see them through my paint, so it should be fine. I'm going to go right here at about this middle part. So do you see I'm not going too close to my moon, but I'm not going too far from it either. So I'm starting at this middle part here. Then as soon as I have that, I'm going to take some of it and I'll add some white to it. And with that, I'm going to do a part closer to my moon. And I will blend them in. And notice I'm not being careful around things here because I feel like I don't need to. It's just the first layer. This one is always messier. And because it's first layer, you can always be a little bit more casual about everything else because you will cover it up. Like this cat, pumpkin, you'll just add it on top and you'll fix whatever may go wrong here. And then I'm going to move to, again, with this color that I made. I'll take a bit more blue. I'll add it in. And I'll take some black and I'll add it in. Not a lot again. And with this color, I'm going to go on to the rest of this. And I'll add it, and then I will blend it towards the inside. This is my sky. You could definitely go darker or lighter. That's entirely up to you. It doesn't have to be a perfect match for this particular color. It's lighter, great. Darker, awesome. So again, I'll repeat quickly the order. So we did the medium color, then we did the lighter color. So just took a smidge of that medium color, added white, and covered this one. And then we did the darker one. So again, medium color plus some more blue, some more black, and then did the edges. And then we just blended all the three colors together. And this is what happened. And then for the moon, I am going to go super light. So I'm still going to use a smidge of that teal that we just used. But I'm going to add lots of white to it. However, I'm not covering my moon fully white. I'm covering this super light teal originally. That would be the base for my moon. It's going to be the super, super light color. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paint my moon with this. Again, you can be careful around the cats or not, because you can still see the outline, no problem. Especially if your pencil lines are a bit on a darker side, you should not have problems seeing your pencil lines. So I personally find that there's no need to be careful around them. All right, I'll give you guys a little second for this. And plus, it does need to dry a touch, and then we'll add more stuff to it. Okay, so after this, I'm gonna start adding my white to my moon. So this should be, your teal should be a bit less, so it shouldn't be too wet, because if it's too wet, your white wouldn't really stick. It's just gonna be mixing, you're not gonna see anything. But it doesn't have to be fully dry either, as long as it doesn't have like a thick layer of wet paint. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to take just a bit of white. This is a clean, dry brush. I'm going to take a little bit of white on it, not a ginormous amount. And first, I'm going to start by actually adding it closer to the edge here. So I'm almost dry brushing. So dry brush technique should be working. If it's not working, it is too wet. If it doesn't stick, do you see, in my case, you can see that a little bit of glow. And that's good. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to see a little bit of glow. And you can even be a little bit not careful intentionally and add some right on the edge where your moon connects to your background. Dry brush some white on it too, and it will soften up the edges of your moon and make it glow even more. All right, so you see it has a nice glow here. May have been a little too much, but it's fixable. Yay, here to glow. Now the same technique, I'm going to be continuously taking just a little bit of paint on my brush, and now I'm going to be rubbing them like this, rubbing them in to create the texture for the moon. So it looks like it's glowing, like there's some craters there. It has a moon texture and it's all glowing. There's no particular order in which you have to do this. All right, my moon is done and I love it. It's very glowy. It's a very glowy moon. And now I'm actually going to dry brush even more. So I'm going to take whatever I have to see the little bit of white that I have left. And I'm just going to dab it off on a paper towel. And then with whatever leftover I have, which should be very, very little, bare minimum, I'm going to dry brush it right around my moon. And my background is super dry at this point, but if yours is not, that's okay. If it blends, it's not a bad thing, but just see for yourself. If you feel like it starts ruining it and pulling a paint and just doesn't do what it should, because sometimes there's that state of paint when it's not fully dry, but it's not fully wet, where it doesn't dry brush, but it doesn't blend either. It just pulls the paint off the canvas. So if it's that state, maybe dry it. So if you guys find that you're in a just colder environment or your paint is generally a slower drying paint, you can always grab a blow dryer and assist with a blow dryer as needed. So you see again, it added that glow to the background. And this is just dry brushing. All right, and our background is pretty much done. After this, we're going to move to our cats and our pumpkins. Well, we're going to move to our pumpkins first, because pumpkins do require a lot more work. Pumpkins require a lot of layers, and they're lighter in color. And then after that, we're going to move on to our cats. But I will give you guys another minute for our background. So, and as we do that, I'll talk about pumpkins. So pumpkins we're going to do in multiple colors too. We're going to start with just two colors. So we're going to do a base pumpkin color and we're going to do a darker color for the edges and all, you know, how to separate pumpkins too from the ones that are closer to the ones that are further. And we'll just create base from just two colors, lighter, darker. And then once we have that, we're going to add second layer, and that's where we're going to go even darker on the dark zones and even lighter on the highlights. And then we're going to add even third layer, where it's going to be plain straight white highlights and some really, really dark little contrast sections on those edges. And then we're going to move to our cats. And after cats, we're going to move to stems and leaves. So stems and leaves are going to be done almost last. Last is going to be bats in my case. But also it doesn't matter. Bats could go before the stems and leaf. It whatever works out the best by the drying, because again, the drying times between everything. So depending on what works out, there's no particular order it has to be done in. So I would say we could probably move on to our pumpkins. And we're going to start by creating two colors. So one is going to be a base color for your pumpkins, so something orange. And one is going to be a darker orange, almost brown, reddish tone. And you can use whatever brush works for you, but I'm going to go with, I'll probably mix, no, I'll go with medium for all of it. Why not? I could have gone with large, but it doesn't really matter. Large or medium, just not a small one. So let's start by creating the base pumpkin color. So I'm going to start with yellow. I'm going to add some orange, sorry, some red. I'm going to create nice, vibrant orange. And it's important that to this color you add white. Super, super important. So this is going to be my base color. Now I'm going to make my darker color for the in-between areas. So again, I'm going to start with the same yellow and red. You can add a bit more red this time. Then I'm going to add a bit of black to it. This is a great color. And then again, just a tiny smidge of white. Not any white to make it lighter. But the only reason we're adding white is for consistency. Because student grade paint, acrylic paint does seem very often to be on a bit more transparent side. So for us to get rid of that problem of transparency, we have to add a bit more, a bit of white to it every time we use it pretty much. All right, so do you see it's like a reddish brown, but not very dark. This is what it looks like. You could go a bit more on the redder side or on the orange side or on the brown side. So do you see this when it looks, when it's concentrated, it looks a little darker. When it's thin layer, it almost looks orange. Almost looks like a dark orange. But anything around that color is great. Again, lighter or darker is fine. And what I'm going to do with this, so I'm going to start with, doesn't matter which pumpkin you start with really. Let's start with the middle pumpkin. So I'm going to go closer to the edge with this color. Closer to all those lines. On the top. You see it looks messy, and it should be. It should look messy. It's perfectly fine for this. And then I'm going to wash off my brush. And the rest I'm going to fill in with my main color. And I'm going to blend the two in. See, and now it starts making sense. Before it didn't make much sense, but now it's making sense. Making a lot more sense. All right, so that's one pumpkin, and I'm just going to continue doing the same thing with all my pumpkins. And the only thing on the ones on the side, I'm going to add a bit more of this dark color closer to the edge of the first pumpkin to separate them a bit more. So we know that this one is up front, so it's a little bit lighter, and those two are a bit behind, so they're a little bit darker. All right, so the first layer of my pumpkins is done. I'm just gonna give it some time to dry because I can really add next layer until this one dries up at least a little bit. It doesn't have to be fully dried, but it can be completely wet either. And as it's drying, what I could work on is inside the cat's eyes. So I'm gonna take my small brush, I'll make the eye color, and I'm just gonna color in the insides of each cat's eyes. So this one for me has this beautiful glowing, almost like a golden color. It's a yellow with a smidge of red and some white in it. This one is light blue, and this one is very cold light green, so almost like a borderline teal color. But again, you do what works for you. Do any colors that work for you. We're going to use a small brush for that. So I'm going to start with my middle one. I'll take some yellow on the side, the tiniest little smidgeroni of red, and some more white to it. Oh, I think I may need to add a bit more red. Just gonna go ahead and color this. And technically you don't have to even avoid that inner black part. You can just color the whole thing because we can add that inner black part on top anytime. It doesn't have to be avoided. Unless you find it's easier to do it that way, then you can. And again, feel free to make them a little bit bigger than what you need to. So basically go outside your lines because again, black, you don't want to have any gaps between this in the end and your black outline. It's just going to look weird and it's going to look unfinished and it's just going to look very amateur in a way. So what you want to do is you want to slightly overlap your yellow with black to make sure they come to contact. There's no white canvas. And then once we add glare, it's going to be a bit more controlled too. So that's for my first cat. And I'm going to make a light blue for my second cat. So just white with a tiny smidge of blue. And then the last one, I will take my blue that I just used and I'll add a bit of yellow in it to make it more green. That will be my last cat's eyes. And again, it's not a full-on green, still closer to teal, like a sage color or very light emerald, but I like it. I like the color. All right, and that's our cat's eyes. And then I'm going to move back to my pumpkins. So my pumpkins are dry enough for me to continue working on them. So I may as well. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to start with my highlights. So do you remember this is the orange that I used originally? So I'm just going to take a little bit of that, mix it with some yellow and some white to create a color that's lighter and yellower than that original orange, but still somewhat orange. So it shouldn't be straight yellow. Do you see it's still orange? It's like a mixture between yellow and orange, but on an orangey side. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and with my medium brush, I'm going to add a couple highlights. In all the light parts. All right, so those are my highlights. They look good. I like them. And then I'm going to take my smallest brush. And you can either take the same straight brown or you can even take a bit of black and add it to it to make it a little bit darker. So do you see I made it just a touch darker. I made it more like an actual dark or medium dark brown. It's not even fully dark brown. It's more like a medium dark brown. And with this color and a small brush, I'm just going to add a little flicks from the top and the bottom. All right, and then pretty much right away after that, you can actually use either small brush or medium brush, whichever works for you. And then you can take a tiny smidge of white, just a very, very small, and add a couple little glares here. I actually like doing this while my orange is still wet because it blends into all shades, and I like that. It creates a lot of variety. But you can do this on dry too, and it will still look good. It will look a little different because it's not going to blend, but it will look great. So regardless whether you do it on somewhat wet or fully dry, it's totally fine. All right, and that's pretty much my pumpkins, except I'll add a tiny, tiny smidge of black to them once I move to cats. But until then, they are done. Yay, thanks guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Glad you like it. Okay, and after this, we can actually move right onto our cats. There is no reason for us to wait. We're not waiting for anything. Nothing needs to be dry. So we're just gonna take some black, use whichever brush works for you, and go ahead on your cats and fill out our cats. So I'm going with my medium brush here, but on the areas that I can't do with medium brush, I will switch to small. So I'll do areas that I can with medium, and then the areas that I cannot do with medium, I will switch to small, and I'll do them with small brush. Yay, I'm glad. I love it when people actually paint along with me. It's great to paint from a video, don't get me wrong. It's awesome because there's a lot more flexibility as far as taking breaks and, going at your speed and all that. But I do like when people paint along. It just feels like we're doing it together. Nice. All right, cat number one. The other two, I'm just going to do a small brush because I don't think medium brush can handle those. Small brush it is. All right, I have my left cat. Let's move to my right cat. All right. And done. And now while we're waiting, oh, almost forgot the inside the eyes. This guy here. As we're waiting for our cats to dry up just a little bit so we can add, there's going to be a little white highlight around them. And there's going to be the pumpkin stems and the leaves. So as we wait for that, we're going to add whiskers, eyebrows, and noses. And then we're going to move to our beds to give them a bit more time. So I would say let's start with the whiskers because we're already on black, or might as well. So I'm just going to take black and I'm going to flick a little bit. You don't have to. You can just skip the whiskers. They look great without them too. So if, let's say, you don't have a brush that's fine enough to do this, you can completely skip this. But I do like adding a little whisker, little eyebrows, all those flicky things. And always make sure you always flick them from the inside out and not the other way around. Because wherever you start is going to be the thickest point, and you want that to be closer to the cat versus the opposite. You want it to have a nice long pointy flicks. And you can also take a little bit of black and add it right here. So just a touch. So on those lines, closer to the top and the bottom of your pumpkin. Super optional. If you feel like you don't need it, then don't do it. It doesn't make a dramatic difference to it. It just adds a tiny smidge more contrast. So see for yourself if it needs it or not. And then after that, we're going to let it dry and we're going to move to our bats. So let me talk to you about bats for a second. As you notice, my bats are different colors. So this two are the same, this two are the same, and this one is different. So I have three different colors here: lightest, medium, and a darkest. So how I usually start is I start by making this one, then I add a bit more black and move to this, a bit more blue and a bit more black and move to this one, and a bit more black and to that one. If you don't want to make your life that complicated, it's totally okay to make them all one color. They don't have to be all different colors. This is for anyone who feels like, let's make this more difficult. But also, I do find the look. I find that I do like the look. So that's why I'm going to make them the same. I'm going to make them all slightly different shades. But again, if you want to simplify, just choose your favorite shade and do all the bets in that color. So I'm going to start by making my first color. And it's going to be very similar to that background color, to this somewhere right here. So again, maybe even to something like that. I'm going to take some white, some blue, mix them up. I would say I'll make about medium blue. I will definitely add a bit of yellow to it because, again, I'm trying to keep all those background things a bit more on a teal side, so on a colder side, so I don't want a straight up blue. So I'm just going to take a smidge of yellow, add it in to give that cold, greener undertone. And to this, I will add a tiniest smidge of black too, because I want everything to be slightly stormy. So I'm going to add that little touch of black, but do not overdo it with black because it's just going to turn into full-on gray without any color in it if you do that too much. So I think this is great for me. I love this color. It's going to be my first color for my first bottom bats. I'm just going to take my smallest brush, a little bit of this color, and I'm going to go ahead and color in my smallest bats. And I can still see my bats through my paint. I know they're not very visible on camera, but they're quite visible. If you feel like you got to this point and you cannot see your bats at all, that's okay. You can just resketch them. You can take your time, resketch them with pencil first. That way, if you don't like something, you can erase it before you move on to painting part. All right, that's bat number one. I'll do another one on the other side. This one I can't really see, so I'm almost going to freehand it, which is fine with me. All right, bat number two. Then I'm going to add a bit more black to the same color, just a little bit. I'm going to move up and I'll add next two bats. I'll have to rotate my canvas a little bit so I don't place my hand over the cats, because cats are still really wet. All right, next two bats, almost done. And then one last darkest bat left. I'm just going to add one more smidge of black to the same paint to make it a touch darker again. I'll move on to my darkest bat. This one is tricky because it's above everything and everything is wet, but that's okay. Ta-da! All my beds. They are done. And my cats are pretty dry. So I can move on to my stems. So what I'm going to do, remember I had a brown here? I still have some, but I might need to make more. So I'm just going to take this orange, red, black, mix them up, make brown. For those of you who need to make brown from scratch and don't have orange, it's yellow, red, equal parts, plus black until you arrive at the right color. But in this case, we do have to add a little bit of white because we're not working over white surface, we're working over black surface. So if you don't add any white, you're actually not going to see your brown at all. So add some white to it. You see, I'm not making light brown. I'm just adding a smidge of white so I can see it. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my stems. In this color. And then right away, I'm going to take a little bit more white. I'll add it to my brown. I'll make a lighter brown, a lot lighter brown. And with this color, using just the tip of my brush, I'm going to add that swirl. I'm going to add that twist. And also, you can also add, with your original dark brown, a little swirl like this onto your cat. Add it with one brown first and then highlight it. You started with a darker brown, and then you highlight it with a light one. It's super optional. Definitely don't have to do it unless you feel like you want to. All right, and then I'm going to move right to my green leaves. And I'm going to start by making dark green. So that is yellow, blue, lots of blue. And still, because we're adding it over not white surface, we're going to add a little bit of white. Just a little bit of white. So it reads better. And then with this color, I'm going to go ahead and color in all my leaves. All right, my leaves are here. Now I'm going to add two more colors onto my leaves. So one is going to be darkening it. So to the same color I just used, I'm going to add a black. Just some of it. I'm not using all of it. And then with this color, I'm just going to pull it from the inside the leaf and almost like a darken up the middle of it. And with a lighter one, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to take the color that I originally used, add some white to it, and you see it created lighter green. And using just a little bit of that lighter green, I'm going to pull it from the edge in. So I'm going to do like a little flicks from the edge towards the inside. This light green. That's one. Then I'll add a line in the middle here, just a small one. Maybe a couple lines from that line. Same here, I'll start with the edge that's closer to us. And then if you want, you can go add a line. If your leaf is not big enough, you don't have to worry about that. You just can add it, end it here. And now we're gonna let that dry up a little bit too, because there's still a white highlight that we need to add. And another thing that we can add here that we don't have yet is one little triangle nose. So this cat is gonna have a tiny little triangle gray nose. So I'm gonna take some white paint, tiniest little smidge of black. Actually, not tiniest little smidge. It's fairly dark gray. So this is the gray. And I'm gonna add a little triangle nosy. Ta-da! And now it's ready for highlights. We're gonna add lots and lots of highlights everywhere. So as I'm waiting for it to dry, I can actually start with my background and my bats. So I'm gonna grab my small brush. I'll take some white, and I usually like to water down my white a little bit for the small elements because I find that this brush is really good. But even if you have the best brush in the world, your paint is too thick, you're never going to be able to get fine lines with it. So always make sure your paint is liquid enough to actually allow you to use your brush properly and give you fine lines. So I always like to water down my paint. If your paint naturally comes super liquid, you don't need to do this. But I find that with my paint, it comes a little bit more on the thicker side. So I always have to. So I'm going to water down a little bit just for consistency, not for transparency. I do not want it transparent at all. I just want it nice and liquid. Or liquid enough for me to use just the tip of my brush. And using that, I'm going to go and add a tiny highlight on my bats. So just the tiniest little smidge here and there. It's not even going to go on everywhere. It's like a little flick. So just a little flick here and there. Like a little glow, silver lining. All right, and now my bats have a little glow. Then I'm going to move on to adding a couple stars, and the rest are dots. So in my case, I only have 2 stars here. But again, it doesn't mean you only have to have 2. You can have 1, you can have 3, you can have 25, any number that you want. And stars are super easy to make. What I usually do is I start with a dot, and then I flick up, flick down, flick to the left, flick to the right from that dot. Flick up, flick down, flick to the left, flick to the right. Super, super simple. And again, you can add as many of those as you want, anywhere you want. Just the only thing I would say, keep in mind, you want to have a variety in sizes. You don't want to have like a copy paste star. If you're making more than one, try to make them slightly different. Maybe some bigger, some smaller, and so on. Just don't have them exactly the same. All right, I think this is good for me. And then we're going to add some dots. So just using the tip of your brush, you can push a little harder on somewhere, a little less on other part. And sometimes I even dab it with my finger just to make them a little bit softer so they don't look so harsh white. Just gonna add a couple stars. And I like adding them closer to where my moon meets my sky, but also a little bit further, like somewhere around the zone is fine, but I probably wouldn't bring them further than that. All right, so do you see I added some stars. You can make them more visible too if you want to. You see mine are pretty subtle. They're not crazy visible, but you can make some a little bit more visible for sure. And then I'm going to move on to my cats, and I'm going to start with the face. So I'm going to start with my eyes here. I'm going to do a dot here, so two bigger dots, and then two smaller dots right at the bottom of this black circle. And then a tiny little, almost circular glare following the outline of the eye. I'll do a dot on a nose. And the same thing I'm going to do for all the other eyes. No worries. Thanks for joining, Brian. All right, I'm going to do the same for this guy here. So the bigger dot first on both eyes, same positioning. And a smaller one on the bottom, and then a little rounded glare. And the same here. Bigger dot, smaller dot, rounded glare. There's two cats on my left and the right. They're not going to have nose, but feel free to add it if you would like. And then I'm going to move right on to a little, almost a glare on the outline. So again, I'm going to water down my white, and this time you can water it down more, or you can water it down to partial transparency, because you don't need it crazy white. And then I'm just going to go closer to the edge, and in certain areas, I'm going to almost like fur it up in a way. All right, and now I'm going to move on to highlight on my pumpkins. And sorry, not pumpkins themselves. However, you could add more highlight to pumpkins too, mostly to our stem, because we don't have any white on the stem yet, and then our leaf. So I'm just going to add a little, like super simple, following the same twisted pattern. Just a little flick. This time you're not bringing it all the way through, just adding a little flick on one side of your pattern. You can add a little highlight onto the swirly if you want. Again, very optional. And on a leaf, if you decide to add it on a leaf, you're going to be adding it on the edge. And then if you want to, you can add just a couple little dots on a pumpkin itself, anywhere you want. Optional, super optional. All right, and that is our 3 cats. They are officially done. 3 awesome cats and 5 bats. 3 cats, 5 bats, 3 pumpkins. And that's pretty much it. After that, guys, go ahead and sign it. So find a spot, any spot that you like. You can put your name, your initial, or your signature, or anything else that you find that represents you well. And ta-da! All done. You're welcome. Thanks for joining. So something I want to mention, you can do your edges if you want to, if you feel like that was too easy. Give me something else to do here. You can do your edges, you can color match them. So then you'll have to recreate a lot of colors, or you can just choose one color that's present. So for example, you can go with something like that. So the grayish blue, and just paint all your edges with that. And it will just give it a bit more finished look. You're not going to have this. And that may not bother you at all, in which case you don't need to do this. Or you can just take black. Black is a universally good color for this. But keep in mind, black will give it a lot more contrast and it will almost make it look framed. So if that's not your look, then don't do it. Also, guys, if this is your first time and you don't know where to share and you would love to share your results, I will make sure there's a link in the description of this video. I actually don't remember if I added it or not yet, but I will. As soon as we're done, I'll make sure I'll go ahead and check and make sure there is a link where you can post your results. It's always a Facebook group. We have a Facebook group where we encourage everyone to share how their paintings turned out. So please go ahead and do that. If you don't mind, of course. If you don't want to, no problem. No pressure. Thank you, Vicky. Thanks, guys. You're so nice. Yes, and if you want to say thank you by tipping me, you can do that too. I will also add a link in the description. It's a PayPal link. You can use that. If you use a PayPal, super simple. You can just click and choose any amount of tip, and tips are always, always appreciated because they help us artists to make events and videos like this for you. And also, if you haven't checked out our website, please do that. We have all our events that are coming up, I would say about month and a half in advance, listed on our website. I'll make sure there's a link also in the description of this video. And that's pretty much it, guys. I think all the links will be in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, or you can always ask them in comments. I will warn you right away, we don't check comments very often. We don't check them daily, but we do check them about weekly, I would say. So it may not get answered immediately. If you would like an immediate answer to something, you can email us. Emails get answered much faster than comments because we do check those way better than we check comments on YouTube. So, but either way, your question will be answered. It just may take a bit longer if you ask it in comments versus if you email us, for example. All right, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Well, that was fun for me, at least. I had a lot of fun doing this. I love cats, so I like this. Makes me happy. And pumpkins are always fun too. Yay, a family of, sorry, something is covering it. A family of 7. Wow, amazing. And happy birthday to Mom, who's having a birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Right, you guys. If no one else has questions, I'm going to let you all finish in peace. And again, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And maybe I'll see some of your artworks later. Bye, everyone.